Imagine finding a frog under frozen leaves. Its body is rigid, its eyes are cloudy, it is not breathing, and its heart has stopped. In almost any vertebrate, that would mean death. But this is a wood frog, and when spring arrives, the heart can begin beating again. The frog thaws, crawls away, and heads for a breeding pool. It is often said that wood frogs freeze solid. The truth is even more interesting. They survive by controlling where ice forms, moving water out of vulnerable cells, and flooding their tissues with natural cryoprotectants. This is not a mortality. It is a carefully managed biological emergency. This is Pip's Fact Orbit. One familiar fact, and a much stranger story. The wood frog, Lithobates sylvaticus, is a small brown frog with a dark mask through each eye. It lives across forests of North America, from the Appalachian region through Canada and far into Alaska. It is the only frog found north of the Arctic Circle. That enormous range matters because a winter in Ohio is not the same challenge as a winter in interior Alaska. Wood frogs spend much of the year on the forest floor. In autumn, they do not swim to the bottom of a deep pond like some other frogs. They shelter beneath leaf litter and shallow soil. Snow can insulate that hiding place, but temperatures still cross below freezing. The frog cannot avoid ice, so evolution has given it a way to survive some of it. The first correction is important. Frozen solid is a useful headline, not a microscopic description. Ice forms in spaces outside the frog's cells and in parts of its body fluids. Ice crystals inside living cells would puncture membranes and disrupt delicate structures. The frog's survival depends on keeping most destructive ice outside its cells. Freezing begins in a controlled way. Contact with ice in the environment helps nucleate ice in the frog. As extracellular water freezes, the remaining liquid becomes more concentrated. That pulls water out of cells. The cells shrink, but the movement reduces the amount of water available to form lethal crystals inside them. A huge fraction of the frog's body water may become ice, while crucial liquid remains protected inside cells. The moment freezing starts, the liver rapidly breaks stored glycogen into glucose. That sugar moves through the blood while circulation is still working. Glucose does not make the whole animal impossible to freeze. Instead, it acts as a cryoprotectant. It helps stabilize proteins and membranes, retains water inside cells, and limits damage as the liquid around them becomes concentrated. There is a race hidden inside this response. The frog must distribute glucose before ice blocks circulation. Core organs such as the liver and heart tend to freeze later, buying time. Eventually, the heart stops, breathing stops, blood no longer circulates. The frog enters a state with extremely depressed metabolism and must tolerate low oxygen, dehydration, osmotic stress, and the chemical shock of later restoring circulation. Glucose is only part of the defense. Wood frogs also accumulate urea while preparing for winter. We usually think of urea only as a waste product, but in these frogs it is another protective molecule. Research on subarctic animals shows that urea rises before freezing, while glucose is mobilized strongly after freezing begins. Together they help reduce ice formation, stabilize cells, and manage water balance. That timing is elegant. Keeping blood sugar at its emergency peak all year could create other problems. Instead, the liver stores energy as glycogen and releases a large glucose pulse when ice begins to form. Urea provides part of the advance preparation. The defense is therefore both seasonal and reactive. Location changes the limits. Temperate wood frogs are generally less cold tolerant than northern populations. Laboratory studies of Ohio frogs found a freezing limit around -3 degrees Celsius under particular conditions, while winter-conditioned frogs from interior Alaska survived experimental freezing to -16 degrees Celsius. That does not mean every Alaskan frog survives every exposure to that temperature in nature. Laboratory temperature, freezing rate, duration, hydration, acclimation, and the frog's exact population all matter. The geographic difference is not just a tougher version of the same animal. Northern frogs prepare more aggressively. They can stockpile more urea, hold enormous glycogen reserves in the liver, and mobilize cryoprotectants in response to severe cold. In a 2015 study, winter-conditioned Alaskan frogs survived multiple freeze and thaw cycles and increased the delivery of glucose to skeletal muscle after repeated cycles. Those cycles are realistic. Beneath leaf litter, autumn and spring temperatures can move above and below zero many times. A frog may begin to freeze, thaw, and freeze again. Repeated exposure can prime its protective response, but cycling still costs energy and creates stress. This is not a superhero switching a power on without consequences. It is an animal spending a carefully accumulated winter budget. The frog also becomes profoundly dehydrated. When extracellular ice forms, water leaves organs and tissues. Studies report that frozen organs can lose a large share of their water. That concentrates glucose and urea in the liquid that remains. The same process that threatens cells with shrinkage also makes their chemical protection more concentrated. Now consider what the body must endure while frozen. With the heart stopped, tissues receive no fresh oxygen. Normal aerobic energy production collapses. Waste products can accumulate. Membranes are squeezed by shifting water, and proteins face unusually concentrated solutions. Then thawing brings its own danger. Oxygen returns, circulation restarts, and reactive chemicals can damage tissues. Wood frogs use metabolic control and antioxidant defenses to limit these injuries. In spring, thawing is not simply an ice cube melting evenly. Core organs thaw early. Observations reported by the National Park Service describe the heart and liver freezing last and thawing first. The heart resumes beating, circulation returns, and the brain and muscles recover. Scientists understand many pieces of this process, but not every signal that coordinates the restart is settled. That uncertainty is worth saying out loud. Popular accounts sometimes turn the wood frog into a promise of human suspended animation. Researchers who studied its cryoprotectants, stress responses, organ preservation, and recovery from interrupted circulation. Those mechanisms may inspire useful biomedical questions, but a human body is far larger. Our organs have different tolerances, and high glucose or whole body ice would be dangerous. A frog is not a ready-made medical recipe. The frog's trick also has strict boundaries. If ice forms inside too many cells, if freezing is too rapid, if the animal is not winter acclimated, if it becomes too cold for too long, or if energy reserves run out, it dies. Even northern populations survive, because their bodies and their insulated hiding places keep conditions within a survivable range. When temperatures rise, the recovered frogs move toward temporary woodland ponds called vernal pools. Males call with a sound often compared to quacking ducks. They breed early, sometimes while patches of snow remain nearby. Their eggs and tadpoles then race against the clock, because many of those pools dry later in the year. That spring chorus is the payoff to the winter story. Weeks earlier, a frog could have had no detectable heartbeat or breathing. Now it is moving, calling, and reproducing. It did not avoid winter, and it did not defeat the laws of freezing. It survived by directing the ice away from the most fragile places, turning stored fuel into cellular protection, and slowing life almost to a standstill until warmth returned. So, can a frog freeze its heart and come back to life? Yes, within biological limits. Extracellular ice forms, circulation and breathing stop, and the animal later recovers. But the miracle is not that every part freezes without consequence. The miracle is control, where the ice forms, when the sugar arrives, how much water moves, and whether every system restarts in the right order.